everyone, welcome back to Installation 00, and today we continue with the Bestiarum, a dive into the respective species of the Halo universe, and we continue with the Lekgolo.
Use the lab equipment to keep above them and out of reach. Weapons free.
Called hunters in their most common form within the Covenant, the Lekgolo are a species of pseudo-annelid creatures that physically shape their colonies in both powerful and practical ways. Lekgolo are a species of worm-like creatures discovered in dense colonies within the rings of Te, each governed by an expansive gestalt intelligence. These colonies are capable of taking on many forms, binding together individual Lekgolo into more intelligent and specialized arrangements, such as the Lekgolo, hulking, compound bodies clad in heavy armor plating, embodying enormous and powerful Covenant soldiers. When equipped with a devastating assault cannon and an ultra-dense Pavi shield, the Lekgolo are virtually without equal among the Covenant's infantry units. At the height of combat, these extraordinary hunters generally view all other species, including their own allies, as impeding irritations, an aspect that frequently results in collateral damage. Untold numbers of Lekgolo colonies were discovered in the rings of Te, but only a handful were deemed useful by the Covenant and allowed outside their system of origin. An individual Lekgolo is typically a shade of orange or red, and is not demonstrably sapient on their own, but when a collective gestalt is formed, complex hormonal and bioelectrical connections arise. Once several dozen Lekgolo are bound together, their measurable intelligence increases exponentially, and are limited only by nutrient requirements and physical complexity. The Covenant used technology to exceed those natural limits, and created the control masses for machines such as the Scarab and the Harvester. The exact nature of Lekgolo intelligence has proven difficult, if not impossible, to analyse in detail. The history of the Lekgolo is inscrutable prior to the Covenant, even among their own kind. When the Covenant first came upon them, they were appalled at the sight of a species gnawing and digesting foreigner materials, and immediately took up arms, but soon became bogged down in a bitter conflict against an enemy that seemed to adapt and spread faster than they could be rooted out. It was only after the intervention of an arbiter that a bargain was struck, an event that became known as the Taming of the Hunters. Despite the Covenant's sudden end, the Lekgolo continue to serve in a similar capacity within various splinter factions. Since the Lekgolo's incorporation, the Sanshayum have cultivated and pruned several families of gestalts that demonstrated useful behaviours and forms, often choosing to augment some colonies with tools that provide protection, environmental support, sensory inputs, and nutrient feeds. Lekgolo come in a few differentiated forms, including the Lekgolo, which are exploration colonies cultivated by the Sanshayum to map the Dreadnought interior. Lekgolo, defensive forms employed in pairs by the Covenant military as heavy shock troops. Lekgolo, artificially engineered as control masses for agile excavators such as the Scarab. Lekgolo, large Lekgolo gestalts used in excavation platforms such as the Harvester. Lekgolo, extremely hostile swarm forms recorded on the Alpha Halo just before its destruction, and the Lekgolo, which are unknown as full records were lost with the fall of High Charity. Of all client species, the Lekgolo is easily one of the most shrouded in mystery. Colony gestalts communicate with each other by entwining extended Lekgolo appendages or by ringing and vibrating their bodies, which generate deep, resonating sound. Translations of these are rudimentary and vague. Most Lekgolo thrumming sounds are loosely interpreted as various states of comfort, recognition, meditation, or even the recitation of poetry. The species' deep relational bonds were often exploited by the Covenant. Splitting a colony into two individual Lekgolo units, known in combat as a bonded pair, make them fiercely protective of each other, and even vengeful in the event that one of the two died. The Lekgolo originated in orbit of the massive blue gas giant Te, also known as Sphere 5, along with the moons of Rantu, Utua, and 23 other natural satellites, was a field of debris that appeared to be the vestiges of several foreigner orbital complexes. It was here, among the ravaged trails of ancient debris, that the Covenant discovered the Lekgolo tunneling through whatever still remained of the installation. For untold generations, their kind had developed in these hostile environments, splintering into diverse colonies as the orbital continued to fragment over time. Due to the extraordinary challenges in taming and extracting sanctioned Lekgolo colonies, the Covenant have no records of returning to Tay. The location of the sphere system was not a secret, but lack of interest ensured it was missing from many navigational databases and charts. With the loss of High Charity, there are only a few intact records of routes to the system, and most of these are located in remote archives. The Banished have expressed an interest in recovering this knowledge, presumably to press new colonies into their service and reassess the Forerunner ruins with knowledge they ransacked at the Ark. Following the Covenant's war with humanity, the Lekgolo quickly became a sought-after asset for splinter factions desperate to safeguard their respective groups and territories. This formidable species offered the Banished a highly versatile resource to satisfy their needs, both industrial and military. When the Great Schism fractured the Covenant's foundational allegiances, the Lekgolo showed no truly consistent loyalty across its species, but stayed with those commanders they most closely respected, whether Sanghili or Jiralhane. In most cases, their diverse subset continued to serve in varied roles, whether as heavy infantry or by operating vehicles like the Scarab or Harvester. Under the leadership of the Warmaster Atriox, however, Lekgolo in the Banished have enjoyed an extraordinary level of freedom, dominating the battlefield and even witnessing the elevation of leaders among their own kind. With this newfound opportunity, individual Lekgolo colonies were used as part of the Banished's raw infantry forces and to control and power vehicles at a limited capacity. This application has become, without question, the most diverse leveraging of this species into a combat role since the dawn of the Covenant. The vast majority of hunters within Banished ranks have retained their full Covenant-era complement of armour and weaponry, partly due to its wide availability and partly to the increasing influx of new bonded pairs accompanying smaller ex-Covenant factions who have now pledged total allegiance to Atriox and the Banished. These hunter pairs are often seen in heavy escort roles, augmenting infantry, vehicle depots, and artillery emplacements across a wide variety of Banished-held regions and territories. Their formidable presence within the Banished number is clear evidence not only of Atriox's unflinching power, but his compelling sway over nearly all disparate remnants of the shattered Old Empire. The longest-serving Lekgolo in the Banished, ardent hunters, are almost always seen sporting the red and steel colours of the faction. Their arm-mounted assault cannons have been overclocked and modified to focus unstable energies across a wide power band, and their combat shields have been reinforced with cold-layered alloys to withstand even heavier firepower than their Covenant armour would allow. Ardent hunters are often deployed to security detail at critical sites, from artifact excavations and vital convoy routes to command barracks and forward war councils. Within the Swarm Lord colony's extensive forces, one of the most resilient and powerful infantry units are the Scarred, an aggressive and violent expansion of the Banished's existing ardent role. Lekgolo combat veterans that were blooded for centuries during the long ages of the Covenant now don unbreakable Banished armour and viciously overcharged weaponry that far outstrips what was used in those early days. Only the greatest among the Lekgolo serve in this role, an interesting yet unsettling dynamic which has engendered fierce competition among the Lekgolo hordes. Scarred hunters were pivotal in Atriox's battle against the Spirit of Fire and the surviving Covenant elements on the Ark. Among all hunter units deployed by the Banished, the Goliath is perhaps the most profound and unsettling. Unlike typical Lekgolo, where a bonded pair represents a single colony, two halves operating in coordination, the Goliath is a single colony gestalt. Rather than utilising an assault cannon like a standard hunter, the Goliath has no formal weaponry. Instead, it is designed for sheer brute strength. Its enormous hulking frame scrambles across the battlefield on four limbs, searching for victims to crush. Boasting a unique armour set, the Gestalt prioritises raw musculature over any cognitive benefit and is directly commanded by a local captain, Due to the astonishing amount of energy exerted to sustain this Gestalt type, Goliaths are rare on the battlefield, so are usually only encountered when deemed absolutely necessary. The Ironclad are a specialised multi-species sub-pack within the Banished ranks focused on heavy fire and anti-vehicle operations. The Hunters, who are integrated into this role, are outfitted with expressly augmented carapaces and defensive arm shields. During one well-documented encounter on the Ark, known as the Ocasio Blitz, 4 Ironclad Hunters escorted a pair of Banished tank crews across treacherous terrain, successfully breaking through garrisoned human forces to capture a key resource allocation for Shipmaster Lekgolo. Among the Ironclad, the Lekgolo are perhaps the most significant, and continue to be employed by Banished commanders across all theatres of war. And finally, the Captain is a super heavy infantry unit typically utilised directly by the Banished Swarm Lord known as Colony. Their thick armour and massive shield make them extraordinarily strong, but often at the expense of mobility, sometimes necessitating the presence of additional infantry escorts to draw fire and cover blind spots. Captains are sent to locations where Banished operations require direct intervention and are closely monitored to ensure that all Banished Lekgolo colonies and Gestalts are operating at full efficiency during battle. They are without equal among their kind. Thanks for watching. If you haven't already, consider hitting the subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss out on future content, and hit the like button if you enjoyed the video. It really does help the channel out significantly. Feel free to pop a comment below on anything you'd like me to cover next, and before signing off I just want to give a shout to my Patreon supporters, Spartan10148, my singular Contender class Ancilla, Falcon, Jordan and Poseidon, the Metarchs of my facility, Sylphia, Ashley, Esoteric, Spartan 1029 and Chris Allen, my dutiful monitors, Darian, Legion, Labrat, Spartan 137, Chris, Element 0, J3, Mr. Keys, Gunslinger Cult, Evermore's Personal Devil, Scion Esports, and Saber, my diligent sub-monitors, my dominating fleet of Strato Sentinels, and my loyal enforcers, and all other patrons who continue to support the channel. I can't thank you guys enough. Big props to my Tier 0 YouTube members, Spartan 137, Talia, Fenrir, Bornstella, and Jimbo, and all other YouTube members keeping the installation running on that glorious vacuum energy. And if you really love what I'm doing here, consider supporting the channel via the links in the description. Much love, take it easy, and find peace in the domain.